Hello, friends. Ready for another incredible story? Let's go. At the beginning, our protagonist is absolutely wrecking a monster that seems ridiculously strong, but he kills the creature with extreme ease. Then, the system notifies him of completing the boss fight. He eliminated the area's boss, the Scorpion King. He complains that now he has to go hunting again because he's going to get bored soon. We learn about the world's largest virtual MMORPG, Arena, and he's ranked first globally, first in total character level, and first in Coliseum points. He's the top player with an unprecedented record. Suddenly, he says he thinks it's time to call it quits and focus on the real world. That day, he decided to quit the game for good. His friend asks if he's lost his mind, wondering if he actually deleted his Arena account. Ukul Yong-chan asks why he's so shocked, explaining that he can't just keep playing games forever because he needs to focus on real-life stuff. But Yang-shan asks how he couldn't be surprised. After all, the top-ranked player just vanished. That character could have sold its items and easily secured hundreds of thousands of dollars. But Reno explains he made the decision because he didn't want to regret it in the future. To him, games should be fun, not a way to make money. So then, Hong Shan asks what he's going to do now, and the kid says he's going to enlist in the army and take over his father's business. At this, Shan wonders why he even cared about that spoiled rich kid. But Ruan remarks that there was a time when he said that, but someone somewhere once said life is unpredictable. 2 years later, he's working at a convenience store, dealing with a drunk. He says the man reeks of alcohol and even looks like a goblin, complaining that annoying customers are the worst. He reintroduces himself, saying that he's now working part-time at the convenience store for $40 an hour. He's shocked, thinking who would have thought that the super-rich heir of the danced construction company would fall so hard. The downfall began around the end of his military service, when his father's company went bankrupt. He says his father, the family's pillar, got sick, and the family got buried in massive debt. He had no choice but to support his family, and his main source of food now comes from expired goods from the convenience store. He has to save every penny to pay for his father's medical bills and the family's expenses, wondering how long he can keep going like this. That's when he gets a message from Yong-chan, telling him to respond because he already knows everything. Yong-chan questions why he thinks friends exist, saying they're supposed to help each other in tough situations like these. At this, he realizes Yong-chan hasn't given up on him, feeling grateful. He reveals that, in truth, he was the one who started ignoring Yong-chan after his family went bankrupt because he thought talking to him would only make him feel more pathetic. Yang-shan keeps messaging him, asking if he's going to keep ignoring him, until he suggests that R should return to Arena. That catches R's attention. The kid says, "Damn, Arena is pretty profitable these days. If he becomes a streamer or goes pro, it'd be easy money for him to make millions." He adds that he just wanted to remind him that the option is legit, given he's the former #1 ranker. R starts thinking about Arena, wondering if he could regain his status as a top player and maybe actually make money from it. He says if that's true, it could really work out. So, he heads to the mall, but tells himself he got his hopes up for nothing. He realizes he didn't notice it back then because he bought it without thinking, but the cube he used to play is way too expensive, at least 3 times his current salary. He questions why he deleted his account back then, realizing now that it was such a waste. Then, one of his old friends appears, Junram. Beck asks if he doesn't remember him, and Rio has some trouble but eventually recalls him as the delinquent son of his father's business partner, Mr. Young. June snarkily says that maybe the great son of Danu Construction doesn't think he's important enough to remember, but Hanek tells him to chill, saying it was just a joke, though he seems shaken. Thinks to himself that this jerk hasn't changed, still acting like that, and wishes he'd just finish his business and leave. Junram mentions that people usually shop at the mall, but since Runo's family went bankrupt, he wonders if he even has the money to be there. Runo asks how he knows that, and June replies, "What do you mean? How? Didn't your parents tell you?" He says that what happened to Runo's family was all his father's fault. Asks if he's saying it was Mr. Young who betrayed his father, and June responds that his father worked for RS father for decades, and it was time for him to come out on top. He goes on to say that RS dad was so shocked that he collapsed, and now R has to take care of the old man, making sure he doesn't die alone in his bed. Charges at him, landing a solid punch right to the kid's face, calling him every name in the book. The security guards start approaching to calm things down. They ask what Ruth thinks he's doing, and he's still furious about why his father is bedridden and why his family is in ruins, with Ramba saying it's all because of his family. Then, a girl asks what's going on and orders them to call the police. But Reno tells Ramba that he's going to kill him, no matter what happens. A little later, he's already walking out of the police station, in the middle of a massive downpour, wondering if the money is really worth it. He thinks Jung not only betrayed his family, but also goes around bragging about it, like it's something to be proud of. He thinks about getting his revenge, but wonders how he's going to do it. Then, he says that right now he has no power to take his revenge. While watching TV, he hears that someone recently signed a $2.5 million contract, and the person on TV says that apparently they've made millions by streaming Arena. They realize that's a ton of money, and she mentions that Arena is having a much bigger impact on the economy than expected, with new jobs popping up related to the game. He thinks about Arena, and when he picks up his phone, he doesn't feel embarrassed or proud. His body just moved on its own. He calls Chan. The guy answers, saying it's been a while since they've talked and asking why Ruan hasn't replied to his messages. Ruan apologizes for calling out of the blue. Yong Chan asks what happened, and Ruan asks if Chan can help him because he wants to get back into Arena. Meanwhile, in the game's executive office, the employees are going nuts because something huge just happened. Millie God is back. One guy, sweating in the office, says that a new character was just created with the Millie God's user data. His boss asks if it's my God, but the guy says it's Millie God, the perfectionist. The boss is surprised, asking if he's really back, but with full irony, questioning if the guy really thought he'd say that. He sarcastically asks why he'd care about some washed-up player from 2 years ago and tells him to get back to work. Then, the girl behind them notices that Millie is indeed back, and she quickly tells her boss, requesting a status report on the character currently in the tutorial. The elf NPC informs the manager that the character, Kong Reno, who is currently in the tutorial, has just completed the magical power test, setting a new record for the test. The boy, excited, tells the manager that he wants to take the next test right away. He says that if Arena is the only way he can change his situation, then so be it. He's going to become a top ranker again. A while back, Yong Chan had brought him to his house and told him he could use his game console. Ruan apologizes, saying he doesn't have the right to say this, but he promises to make it up to him. Chan tells him not to be so depressing since they haven't seen each other in so long. Then, he punches him, calling him a dummy, and tells him not to disappear again. When Ruan enters the game, he immediately grabs a sword, showing great control, and asks the game to start the tutorial. She tells him that, according to the records, she'll give him the level 10 test. He says it's been a while since he fought in the arena and comes face to face with a pretty stylish elf. He thinks that this is the tutorial and realizes it's a level 10 Dark Elf warrior. He says it's not a bad place to start, but reminds himself not to get too excited and controls his breathing. As he closes his eyes, someone yells at him, telling him the tutorial has already started, as an elf charges at him. The elf says it was a mistake to close his eyes, but Reno dodges the elf's attack, saying he doesn't think it was a mistake. The elf is surprised that a level 1 user blocked the attack from a Dark Elf warrior. The boy thinks it's been so long that he blocked it without even thinking about the level difference. Thankfully, it worked. He reflects that the reason he reached number 1 as Millie God was because no one could match his level of control. Meanwhile, the elf grows more and more irritated, saying that he should be stronger and faster, but that humans' attacks are getting sharper by the second. While talking to Chan, Ruan explains everything that's been happening and asks what friends are for, admitting it's going to be tough for him in the first month. Chan offers Reno to stay with him for the first month. The boy thinks about his gratitude, his desperation, and his thirst for revenge as he absolutely thrashes the elf, knocking his sword away. He thinks he's going to repay it all, finishing the elf off with one strike. To do that, he'll become a ranker in Arena again with unimaginable speed. The GM woman watching him thinks that a newly created character just managed to defeat a level 10 Dark Elf warrior, and that's even better than expected. She realizes Millie God hasn't lost his touch and starts congratulating him, saying the tutorial is over. The boy finally enters the game and meets Dell, the village chief, who eagerly greets him and gives him the reward for the test, a ring containing the spirit of a giant. The boy notices it's a unique item and says it was worth taking the level 10 test, stating that it was a great start. Zhang Chan asks if he finished the tutorial and tells him he's sending a ride to pick him up, asking him to head to the east gate. Ruan wonders if that ride could be for him, but Reno says he needs to craft an item and they'll meet up later. Yanzhen asks what item it is, but the boy says it's a surprise and he'll show him later. Yanzhen tells him he just started playing again, asking what he's planning. Before saying goodbye, Ruan asks to borrow 50 euros, since he forgot he was broke, and Chan lends him the money. The boy explains that back in the day, there was an item that all hardcore players used, nicknamed the XP Potion, a popular item that boosted XP gain by 20% for 4 hours. The XP Potion was insanely expensive, sold at 3,000 euros per unit. When the supplier disappeared, the potion faded from memory, or so people thought, because Reno was the supplier himself. He mentions that he's still the only one who knows how to make the XP Potion, and if he sold it at auction, he could name any price he wanted. But the final ingredients aren't dropping from monsters anymore. He's got a long list of items, and he realizes that the only way to get the last ingredient is to enter a dungeon. But he gets irritated because a guy tells him he can't enter, as that dungeon belongs to his guild, the Black Skull Guild, and it's no place for rookies. Reno explains that the dungeon is the only place where he can get the final ingredient, asking what the guy thinks he's doing. He also warns the guy to step aside while he's still being nice. But the guy laughs and says he looks like he just started playing, telling him to beat it for now. Reno loses his patience and tells the guy to move, as he's busy. The player throws his sword at Ruan's neck, asking if he didn't hear him telling him to get lost. Being called a rookie really ticks Reno off. He says his life depends on this game, and he doesn't want to waste a second. He asks the guy if he's up for a character deletion bet, questioning if he's going to chicken out. They mention the character deletion bet, which means if you lose, your character gets deleted. Since not many players are willing to risk it, it's not something that happens often. But the guy accepts the bet, telling Ruan he better be ready to make a new account. Ruan says the tradition of character deletion bets is about to be born, and together with the system, they set the terms. Winner takes everything, and the loser's character is deleted. They both accept, and the duel is on. The player taunts him, saying there's no backing out now, but Ruan says he'll finish him off in 5 minutes and tells the guy to say goodbye to his character, making the guy furious. But Maso tells the guy not to be scared, saying it's rare to get the chance to fight someone like him, and he should think of it as a lesson. At the start of the duel, the guy mocks how much time Ruan is wasting bluffing, and Ruan quickly charges at him, swinging his sword, which the opponent manages to dodge. The NPC says there's no way a rookie can keep up with his speed, and then launches an attack on Ruan, but Ruan blocks it with ease. The NPC is stunned, thinking there's no way that should have happened since he's definitely a higher level. He keeps swinging his sword at Ruan, but Ruan, with just one hand, deflects every strike. The NPC starts wondering if Ruan has some unique item or something. He pauses, realizing Ruan seems way too relaxed for a rookie, and begins suspecting that Ruan might be a player killer disguised as a newbie. Meanwhile, Reno thinks the guy's attacks are way too simple and starts getting annoyed. When the guy tries another strike, Ruan ducks and slashes the NPC's leg, noticing he's full of openings. The NPC gets more and more pissed, calling Ruan a little rat. Ruan wonders if the guy turned off his sensitivity settings because he's acting clueless. Then, Ruan realizes this will be easier than expected and activates his giant strength, which boosts his power for a limited time, and charges at the NPC, this time punching him. The NPC starts getting hit from every direction and can't believe he's getting wrecked by a rookie. With Ruan's presence growing more intense, the NPC starts seeing him as a giant. He wonders if the NPC is distracted, and Ruan thinks it's time to finish this, asking what the guy thinks. As Ruan charges, the NPC knows he needs to block the attack, but his body won't move. Ruan decapitates him, telling him he's not even feeling pain, so of course, he doesn't know the state of his own body. And with that, Ruan wins the duel, and according to the rules, the winner takes all. Ruan is happy because it turns out the guy had a bunch of items on him. Now, he prepares to go after the final ingredient, and back at Alan's workshop, there's a capsule waiting for him. He's got a production job now. He produces 2 items for players. However, he can't quite deal with the players' lack of skill in creating items. Ruan thinks it's a shame he can only do this once a month, but he still remembers how it was back then. So he manages to create the XP potion and now plans to cash in on that beauty. That day, in the exclusive arena trading area, at the arena shop, an insane item was added. Everyone was shocked to see an XP potion, and there was only one available at the entire auction. Every user rushed to get it, and this resulted in an exponential price increase. 6 months ago, the max price of the potion was 3,000 golds, but it ended up being sold for 5,000. So, Ruan made a big pile of cash and thinks that after paying his dad's hospital bills and covering his living expenses, he'll still have about 2,000 gold left. 1 gold is worth about 5 reis, so it's definitely better than working part-time at the convenience store. He says that if he becomes a streamer or a pro player, he'll need to level up to increase his combat power. So, the first thing he needs to do is level up and get equipment. He thinks about using the 2,000 gold he has left efficiently, so he decides to go for practical gear instead of cosmetic sets. He grabs the leather jacket with wind spirit, the red mole leather pants, and the sharp long sword. The village chief is surprised, noting how much the boy has changed since the last time he saw him. He asks if Ruan has joined some CTO, but the boy says no. Meanwhile, some girls nearby start mocking the protagonist, wondering if he's a walking traffic light. What a ridiculous outfit. He looks like me when I throw on every free skin in a game. Ruan starts calling them stupid idiots, insisting that utility is more important than appearance. The chief notices that Ruan's face is the same color as his pants and asks if he's okay. Ruan brushes it off and asks for a mission. He rushes forward, and some starving dogs charge at him. He easily defeats them with his swords. He comments that maybe it's because his stats have increased, but he feels lighter. And Roar realizes that those items weren't expensive for nothing, as he's killing the monsters quickly. He thinks that fashion doesn't matter, only results, and completes the mission by killing all the forest wolves. Then, he focuses back on his objective. He's not playing for fun, he's betting his life on this. Every minute, every second, is money. His goal now is to get goblin blood, and his aim is to reach level 10 by the end of the day. At the dungeon entrance, he notices a lot of people around. A man approaches him quickly, saying he's recruiting members for his team and is looking for close-range fighters. Ruan introduces himself, stating that he fights at close range and asks if he can join. The guy agrees, but then asks Ruan to wait. Ruan feels unsure, and the man says Ruan doesn't seem to have any immunity items. He advises Ruan to look for a group of rookies instead, as they are an advanced team, and tells Ruan not to take it the wrong way. Ruan gets irritated hearing about rookie teams and asks who that guy thinks he is, claiming that even without immunity, he can easily dodge and handle goblin poison spit. At that moment, someone else shows up behind him, asking if Ruan has any experience with the goblin dungeon. The girl says it's her first time there, and they're also looking for someone with experience. If it's not a problem, she'd like to invite him to her group, asking what he thinks. She throws a little charm his way, and he falls for it, telling her, "Of course, I'll carry you, don't worry about anything." She then says they've got their last member and takes him to the group, but none of them seem too happy with Ruana's presence. The girl who's clearly trying to charm the protagonist suggests they all introduce themselves. She says she's a level 20 priestess, Choi Somi. Ruan introduces himself, saying he's a level 20 warrior, and mentions a cool system feature in Arena that keeps user status windows private. Next, a level 24 warrior named Choi Jin introduces himself, followed by a freckled boy who says he's a level 22 archer, Park Shoman. Lastly, Jia, a level 23 mage, introduces herself. I'm probably going to forget their names. One's the tank, another is the archer. Jia is easy to remember, but I'll just call her Manhwa. The tank then asks Ruan if he'll be okay hunting goblins without any defense items. Ruan says he has a pretty good technique. The priestess chimes in, saying it's rude to question someone she recruited, asking if the tank doesn't trust her. He responds that no, he doesn't trust her, and says he doesn't want to die because of her. The two start bickering, and the tank calls them over to show their skills soon, inviting Ruan to join the dungeon. As soon as they enter, they come across some well-armed goblins with nasty expressions. The tank tells everyone to get ready, as it'll be their first fight together. At that moment, some goblins launch darts at them with blowguns, but the tank blocks all the projectiles and orders the backline to stay alert. MANHWA says they're ready, and she begins casting a spell alongside the archer, who readies his arrows. So, he takes the double shot while she fires the magic arrow, and Ruan thinks that even though he was pretty worried, that group is working surprisingly well together. He wonders why they would bother accepting him as a member, but he tries not to overthink it, because as long as he levels up, he doesn't care. After taking down all those goblins, the tank asks his friends if they've been hunting for more than an hour. The mage talks to R, saying he did really well, and the archer comments that his sword was moving phenomenally, asking if he's using some sort of item. But Ruan replies that he already told them he's confident in his techniques. At that moment, the priestess asks the tank to rest for a bit, and he agrees, saying he needs to make sure everyone is ready. They'll need to fight the Robbie Goblin later, as planned. Then Ruan asks about the Robbie Goblin, wondering if none of them has taken down the boss yet. The tank replies that only he has defeated one. He adds that a hobgoblin is quite tough to beat with a level 20 group and that it's been a while since he defeated one too. The tank talks to the priestess, asking her to pay close attention when casting buffs, and also tells the mage to be careful not to burn through too much mana. As for the archer, he just needs to watch out not to shoot his allies. The archer says he doesn't make those mistakes anymore, and with that, Ruan realizes he might end up with an arrow to the knee thanks to his own group. So, the archer uses his magic, noting that this is the entrance to the Robbie Goblin. He's there, sitting on his throne, behind a bunch of goblins. The tank talks to the backline, telling them to handle the smaller goblins while he and Ruan will buy time. He asks the priestess to make sure to buff them, and she complies. Then, he yells that it's time to raid the boss. As soon as they enter, they receive a blessing from the priestess that boosts their strength and agility. The Hobgoblin sends all the goblins after the invaders, but they fall easily. While Ruan kills another one, he notices the Hobgoblin preparing a spell and tells the tank to move out of the way. But the tank takes the hit on his shield, getting knocked straight into the wall. Ruan starts wondering if a mutant goblin that can use magic is going to be a real problem. He says it's going to be bad news if the goblin throws another dark ball, so he has to attack before it gets the chance. He yells to the backline, asking for cover, but all three are still shaken by their leader and are totally injured. Until he yells at them again, and they realize what they need to do. Ruan wonders why they're just standing there, and where that teamwork from earlier went. Meanwhile, Robbie Goblin prepares another dark ball, and the boy is stunned by this. But before he could even register what's happening, he deflects the arrow that was coming at him with his sword, and it accidentally strikes the Rob Goblin in the eye, blinding him. And then, Ruan wonders why the archer had to miss at such a crucial moment, and the boy starts apologizing. Ruan begins to question if these guys want him dead or something, but then he decides to ignore it for now, as his priority is to deal with the guy in front of him. Besides, he's not the type of guy to die to a mere Hobgoblin. So, he starts raiding on his own. He yells at the backline, asking what they're doing, ordering them to attack already. The two start panicking but attack anyway, and after much struggle, they finally kill the Hobgoblin and clear the cave. The archer and mage are all happy about defeating Robbie Goblin, but the priestess says that it wasn't them who defeated Robbie Goblin, it was Ruan who took him down. They start praising him, calling him awesome, but Ruan is really pissed off with those idiots. Then the archer goes to talk to him, saying that the missed shot was just a mistake and asking if everything's cool. He asks what they're going to do with all these items, but the priestess suggests that Ruan should get all of them. A random pet egg, some money, 5 silver and 28 bronze, and the Dark Ball spellbook. Ruan thinks they all look pretty friendly, but he wonders what will happen if they try to kill him if he suggests taking everything. They hesitate, looking at him, and he says he'll just take one item and split. He says he only needs the egg, and the book is useless to him, which shocks the priestess. But before they can say anything, he bails, and the archer takes the opportunity to invite him to hunt again sometime. The priestess asks if they can send him a friend request, and he says they can do that next time they meet. He thinks that, because of all the potential backstabbing, he couldn't relax and bolts out of there. As he heads back to the city, he sees his status window, noticing he's at level 10, and thinks he can finally have a class advancement. He talks about the class tower, or the advancement tower, where each floor represents a different class you can choose, kind of like a convenience store, a must-visit for players reaching level 10. He thinks about the random pet egg since it could hatch into anything from a bunny to a dragon, and all he needs to do is inject some mana, and it'll hatch in an hour. With an hour to kill before the egg hatches, he decides to go for a new class. Meanwhile, at the tower, the floor director of the warrior class, C, asks if he wants to become a warrior, and Ruan says that's exactly why he's there. C says he's a smart guy and that he likes him. And then, he mentions that the ISO class only becomes important starting from the second advancement. C says they're different from those filthy cheaters on the lower floors, and he's going to decide if Ruan deserves to become a warrior through battle. Ruan thinks this is great, and so C grabs a sword and tosses it to him, telling him he'll let him make the first move and to come at him. Ruan says he won't hold back, then charges at C full force, making C raise his sword to defend. C thinks the attack was sharp and notices the boy is already familiar with the sword. He's different from the other adventurers, more than good enough to be a warrior. The boy keeps attacking without stopping. C is impressed but still thinks Ruan is just a rookie adventurer who hasn't yet obtained a proper class, so he activates his buff and throws the boy backward. C thinks Ruan still has a long way to go before he can defeat him, but Ruan plants his hand on the ground and kicks K's sword upward, just before K could strike again. C is surprised that the boy blocked his sword with a kick, and Ruan thinks that was risky, but it worked. C is even more shocked. He had time to think of a counterattack while dodging, and he realizes the boy has a natural flow to his movements, not following traditional swordsmanship. He wonders if this is what they call natural talent and charges at him again, with blood in his eyes. But C suddenly tells him to stop, saying that's enough. He's more than qualified to pass, C says, sweating while the boy's sword is at his neck. Ruan says he was just getting warmed up, and C continues, saying Ruan is incredibly skilled, acknowledging him as a warrior. With that, the boy advances to the warrior class, and his strength and constitution increase by 10 points. He also receives the title Warrior recognized by C, a title given to adventurers acknowledged by the strict class administrator, C. The effect of this title is a 5% increase in melee weapon attacks. Ruan also learns new skills: Weapon Mastery, which increases weapon attack by 10%, Dash, which lets him leap forward and strike with his weapon, and Smite, which charges his weapon with magic for a powerful swing. He thinks he even got a title, so it was worth it. Canon mentions that it might be possible, telling Ruan to grab something, and Ruan receives a new quest. C tells him that when he feels fully confident in his strength, he should find the owner of the coin. The quest is called Find the Knight of Keone. He was recommended by the class administrator Scan, and if he trusts his strength, he should speak to the Knight of Keone, LeBron. The rank is E, and the goal is to meet the Knight of Keone. The reward is a skill from Keone himself. Ruan remembers hearing that LeBron led an army in the arena and is the strongest knight in his empire. The reward is the skill of the strongest knight in the empire. Ruan thinks that's amazing and gets all excited. Meanwhile, Khan, watching his suspicious expression, wonders if FZ made the right choice by giving that coin to this guy. Ruan says he doesn't want to waste any more time, says goodbye to Khan, and leaves. He thinks that was unexpected, but he got a secret quest because he fulfilled a special requirement. However, he figures that since it's an E-rank quest, he'll need to reach level 50 before attempting it. As he checks the egg, he sees there's only a minute left until it hatches. He grabs the egg, feeling lucky, wondering what will happen if he gets a unique pet. But he doubts it will be a dragon. The egg starts to hatch, and he crosses his fingers for a dragon, but instead, a teddy bear with a Barbie-like filter pops out, saying it's a cute little bear. Ruan is shocked by this, and the bear starts talking, saying it looks like Ruan is speechless upon seeing its beautiful form. Ruan is stunned, realizing the pet can talk. It seems the Fae managed to speak quite casually. Ruan thinks a talking pet is something he's never heard of. It's a pretty sarcastic pet. He figures that, in any case, it's extremely rare and wonders if he could make some money doing shows with it. He thinks that, somehow, this will make him some cash. He's already thinking about monetizing the Tedman, huh? While he's deep in thought, the bear hops onto his head and starts braiding his hair into pigtails, saying that from now on, he will allow Ruan to observe him and orders him to keep walking. The bear then asks why he's standing still, telling him again to move, and Ruan says he doesn't understand what's going on, but one thing's for sure, that little bastard who came out of his pet egg needs a lesson. He throws the bear to the ground with all his strength. Then he takes a huge punch in return, and the bear asks how he dares to do that to the heir of Bozing Island, but still says Ruan is qualified to be his master and raises his paw to the sky, asking for forgiveness. Despite this humiliating situation, the bear still taunts him, saying that girls will never like him. Ruan tells the bear to shut up, and the bear starts crying, claiming he's been cursed with a violent master. Ruan thinks that the bear's abilities aren't total garbage, and Reno says he'll call the bear Tang, like in Jitaigi. Tang, hearing this, says it's a good name and toasts to it, celebrating. But Ruan says sorry because he was already planning to log off. Tang gets mad, saying he's only been alive for a few minutes. As Ruan logs out, Tang is left behind. Realizing his master is cruel, Ruan takes off his helmet, which is a cheap knockoff, and says he's spent enough time in the game for today. His friend notices he's done and asks what he got. Ruan says he got a class and a pet, and it wasn't bad at all. Anchan is surprised, asking if that means he can start preparing now. So the boy questions what it's all about, and Yanchan is surprised he doesn't know since it's his debut as a streamer. Apparently, Ruan was the last one to find out he's going to become a streamer, and after the initial shock, Ron says he heard streaming pays pretty well these days. Yongchan then tells him there's something he needs him to do, which leaves the boy uncertain. Yongchan explains that he needs to record every game session, as he'll use the footage to promote and post on the arena world. Ron remarks that it's easier said than done, but Yong reassures him not to worry because he'll be his manager. And when people hear that the former #1 player has started streaming, obviously, they'll tune in non-stop. Ruan asks why Yong seems more excited than he does, and Yongchan says, of course, it's the debut of Millie Godkong they're talking about. How could he not be excited? With that, the boy cheers up and says he'll try to meet his expectations. Later, in the western region of the Dark Forest, he logs back into the game, and some dark elves start looking for him, clearly pissed off. He talks to Tang, saying it's his first fight and asking if he can count on him. The bear, of course, says yes. Ruan says they're going to grind like crazy today. Tang starts cheering for him, but Ron finds it annoying, thinking the bear should fight too. Just as he's about to complain, he notices his sword receiving a buff called Bear Spirit, a rare rank buff, Proficiency F, which boosts strength and constitution by 5% for 5 minutes, with a cooldown of 1 minute. The bear orders him to go kill them all, adding another rare rank buff called Forest Blessing, which increases armor by 5% and grants a 0.1 health recovery per second for 5 minutes. At this point, Ruan finally realizes Tang is a buffer pet, not a tank. A dark elf, similar to the first one he killed, says Ruan let his guard down in front of him and tries to attack, but the boy kills him just the same, saying he lowered his guard because he could. He thinks about Tang, realizing he didn't get a chance to check him out properly yesterday. He's impressed that Tang can increase his strength, constitution, and armor, while also granting a continuous recovery buff, and decides that Tang is way more useful than buffers of his level. Meanwhile, someone is watching him play, a rather suspicious-looking guy. He asks his companion if that's their target for today, noticing that Ruan is wearing wind armor and earth pants. The guy comments that Ruan must be a rich player who buys items, and his friend asks what the plan is for today. The first guy replies, it's a new group. The other, half-bald, remarks how amazing it is that they play the nice guys, then asks if they're planning to ambush Ruan when they get the chance. The priestess seems a little worried, wondering what will happen if Ruan turns out to be someone's secondary character, but the others brush it off. She comments that Ruan looks used to fighting, and the other guy dismisses her concerns, pointing out that the normal level of players in the forest is around 20, and there's no way this guy, L, could defeat them since they average level 40. No one can win when outnumbered. The second guy agrees, saying it's not like they've only done this once or twice. The third guy tells the priestess she worries too much, and she apologizes. They declare that Ruan will be their prey today, and they plan to steal all his items. After killing all the Dark Elves, Ruan says he recorded the footage, but killing Dark Elves doesn't really have much impact. Tang hops onto his shoulder, praising him for his skill. Ron tells Tang he didn't bring him along just to cheer from the sidelines, and that he should stop calling him Master Zinho. It's just Master. Tang teases him, calling him a big guy. But Ruan says the fight isn't over just because of a buff, and with Tang's high constitution, he should at least distract the enemies. Just then, an archer shows up, asking if Reno is hunting alone, and quickly follows up by asking if it's okay to join his group. Reno is surprised and confused, thinking, "What's going on?" The archer says it's nice to see another player in the Dark Forest, but Ruan thinks they already have two warriors, an archer and a priestess, wondering why they'd invite him since he's not even a mage. Plus, they all seem to be wearing level 20 gear, but he notices one of the warriors has a sword that requires level 40 to use. Ruan realizes that if this guy is hiding his level while approaching him, they must be PK, player killers. He thinks that if they're really PKs, this could be a good opportunity. He starts asking if they're really going to let him join the group, thanking them. The archer asks if Ruan is agreeing to join them, thinking they've caught another fool. The archer introduces himself as Rin and says he'll stay in the back line. He introduces their vanguard, C and Crawford, along with the priestess, who is named Basil. Ruan introduces himself as young Sean and asks them to take care of him. Tang also introduces himself, thinking it's kind of weird to use his real name with people he's just met. As they continue walking, Reno keeps killing Dark Elves with ease. They start to feel uneasy, until Ruan hides behind the huge tank, who gets a little freaked out. But then the boy re-emerges, killing another Dark Elf with a backstab, slicing through its abdomen. He retreats behind the tank again as he recharges his attack. The remaining elf, seeing this, becomes furious, calling Ruan a cowardly human. Ruan thinks that the members of this group are strong, almost as if he paid them to help him. His skill proficiency is rising rapidly, so he realizes it was a good idea to start hunting in a group. Meanwhile, the archer starts noticing something feels off. An hour later, the tank starts getting angry, wondering what kind of this guy is, since he just attacks and then runs behind him, questioning if Ruan is just using them all. He mentions that even when Ruan accidentally attacks him, it's purely luck. He feels like he's going to die from frustration. The archer tells him to calm down, saying the target isn't the hunt. The warrior then asks how long they're supposed to wait, and the paladin adds that while staying afloat is nice, it's no good if they take too long. The archer says she was planning to finish this quickly. Even while dealing with the boss, they should kill him and pretend it was an accident, claiming their attacks got mixed up. However, Tang overhears all this and runs to tell Ron, revealing their plan to stab him in the back while fighting the boss. The bear panics while Ron realizes they're PK players for sure, and says he's had enough fun with them and their tasks are done. He decides to attack them first and already starts thinking of the video title, "I killed a bunch of PKs, and here's what happened," commenting that it's a pretty cool name. Honestly, he's starting to look like the villain here. Ron thinks young Chan will love this and vows to make them pay for trying to betray him, 10 or even 100 times over. The group returns to R, apologizing for making him wait. They say it's no problem, and the archer mentions that now they're heading to hunt the boss, asking if Ruan wants to join. Ruan is surprised by this and asks if he'd even be of any help, feeling like he'd just get in the way. The archer starts to panic, as the plan is starting to fall apart, and insists that Ruan has great offensive power. Internally, the archer is wondering if Ruan is messing with them by trying to back out now. He adds that if it weren't for R, they wouldn't have made it this far. Ron seems to fall for his charm, as the archer says they should just go after the boss while they're at it. Ron responds that if the archer says so, he'll have to consider it and asks if they'll keep the same formation. The archer confirms, and Ron tells them he'll show them what carrying someone really looks like. One of the warriors gets even more pissed, muttering that the brat is cocky as ever and tells him to wait because they'll kill him soon enough. As they approach the boss, they continue to face off against the elves until one of the elves kicks a warrior far away with just a foot. To make matters worse, the elf begins to mock him, asking how he could collapse after just that. The elf taunts that if the warrior came to the dark forest to test his strength, he should at least have the etiquette of a warrior. The dark elf boss remarks that it seems they're not ready. The warrior, frustrated, wonders why the boss is so tough to face even at level 40, despite them wearing low-level gear. He starts thinking about when the archer will give the signal, recalling how the plan was to train R's skills during the boss fight, and that's when they would attack. He remembers the archer saying that once Basil buffs them, he'll shoot a paralyzing arrow, and they should focus their attacks on Ruan. One of the warriors questions whether they'll really finish him in just one strike, saying he wants to toy with the cocky brat while he's paralyzed. His friends call him a total psychopath. Meanwhile, Ron decides it's time to go after the boss. The archer tells the priestess to start, and she buffs the whole team. They notice that things are finally getting underway, but as Ruan passes them, the archer starts aiming at him, only for the tank to lift his head slightly and sniff his ear or something, causing the archer to miss and hit one of his own teammates with the paralyzing arrow, dealing critical damage. They yell at Cal, who apologizes, saying that damned, so Tangerine distracted him. Tang shouts that he's not a Tangerine, he's Tang. Reno apologizes, saying Tang is a mischievous idiot who can't control himself. Just then, asks what's going on, but before he can react, the dark elf boss appears behind him. The archer screams for Crawford to be careful, but it's too late. The elf taunts that leaving his guard down is a pleasure reserved for the weak. Ruan springs into action, yelling at the elf to release Crawford, but instead, he surprises everyone by stabbing Crawford in the ribs, killing him. He activates his final move, Backstab, and Crawford dies. The archer and priestess ask Ruan what he's doing. Ruan responds, asking why they're surprised. When someone tries to betray you, they should expect the same in return. The dark elf boss is confused, unable to comprehend what's happening. The archer demands to know when they ever betrayed him, but Tang appears next to him, revealing the whole plan. He explains that while they were supposed to be fighting the boss, they were planning to kill him under the guise of a mistake. The archer is shocked that the bear knows so much and starts trying to attack R, but Ron easily deflects all their attacks, saying it's easy to predict the path of an arrow flying in a straight line. He charges forward, and the dark elf boss is left standing there, ignored while they fight among themselves. The warrior grumbles that this is a disaster. If only he could stand, the boy would be an easy target. But the elf walks over and decapitates the warrior, saying the defeated should stay silent. After killing the two of them, the dark elf boss comments that Ruan seems much more interesting. Sometime later, with everyone dead, Ruan wonders if it was recorded properly. Their levels were only slightly higher than his, but their skills were pathetic. It won't be easy to attract attention if his opponents are this weak. Still, he thinks it was a pretty entertaining performance, and the video should turn out well. Now that the story is complete, if only he could find a real opponent to showcase his skills. The dark elf boss, who had been waiting patiently, asks if he's done. Ruan replies that facing someone powerful is always a pleasure. He then thinks that the subtitle for the video, Level 20 Player Defeats Dark Elf Boss, should do the trick. With that, he charges at the dark elf boss, and an epic battle ensues. Meanwhile, Yong-chan comments on how lucky the boy is, wondering how he managed to find such interesting people. He talks about the loot dropped by PCs and also the rewards from the boss raid. He managed to gather all of it that day, and those guys dropped a good amount of items because of the penalty for committing murder. Yang-chan says that the video, from what it seems, is going to be pretty awesome. He just needs to find a good editor, and they can roll out the show. At that point, Ruanon asks if he's talking about string, but Yong-chan doesn't give a clear answer. So he questions what's up with that since it involves him. Why shouldn't he know? Yong-chan says he'll find out when the time is right. From Yong-chan's printer, a paper comes out mentioning the project to turn Kong H. Uno into a pop star, and the return is at 1%. In the beginning, Wai-shan notices there's no decent editor around and starts evaluating some, but they're just not good. He realizes that most of them aren't even available and wonders if he should raise the pay a bit. Since Wall shot the footage well, now all they need is a talented editor. Then he hears someone say they might have found the editor, and the profile name is L's Movie. Specializing in arena videos, they hold the title for the most popular video that month in the arena world and also earned the Creator of the Year award. Zhang Shan mentions they're kind of pricey, but they're a perfect fit. So he talks about L, a video editor known as a ghost among arena content creators. They meticulously inspect every frame of the video and handpick the music. Their color palette grabs a lot of viewers' attention. He mentions that L earned a nickname from the arena content community, the video virtuoso, as they call him. Meanwhile, the guy who looks the most like H is editing a video, wondering how someone could be so bad at PvP. He says the person in the video is only that strong because of the buff. Then he gets another email from people wanting to edit his video. As he starts going through them, he spots one from Zhang Shan. Out of all the emails he's receiving, he notices that's the guy Michael introduced him to. When he opens it, he's blown away, realizing that this is the dude who edits Millie God's highlight reels. The narrative of that hunt is flawless, and you can even see the same stars during the boss fight. And he thinks to himself that he really wants to edit that. That guy is Ellis, with that cute anime girl avatar. He says he's going to be a fan of Millie from now on. He's gonna take him to the main stage of the arena. Then, as he logs into the game, he gets a sudden chill. Tang asks what's up, and he says he just got a sudden shiver. He wonders if Tang thinks there's an enemy lurking nearby. But then he says that's not important now and mentions that the Pikers dropped something with a penalty, a rare random skill book. It's said that when you use it, the player gets a random rare rank skill. So he says he could sell it for a lot of money, but he might also get something good if he uses it. Then he talks to Tang, giving a hypothetical situation for his pet NPC to answer. Suppose he was in a wasteland and didn't know what would happen there, and if he was thinking of building a farm, he wonders if Tang thinks it'd be better to sell the land as is. But Tang asks what they'd do with the land if he sold it. So he says they'd probably build the farm he was planning to. Tang asks why he'd sell it, questioning if his master is that broke. And Ruan thinks that's not it, since he's already sold the PC's items, so he doesn't really need to sell this one. He shrugs, saying it's not like he bought it with his own money, so there's nothing to lose by using the random skill book and getting a new ability. The system presents him with the skill Blood for Blood. This ability delivers a punch full of spirit and ignores 10% of the opponent's defense. He says that's still pretty good, glad he used it, and he tells Tang that he's his lucky charm. He starts spinning the little bone charm that keeps cursing at him, and then he comments that a few days later, Ruan Inwa's video got uploaded to the arena world, and the response was insane, especially among users who were attacked by the Pikers around the same level. Ekin thinks it's amazing since it's already passed 150,000 views. He knew it, cause the films are so well edited. And since they're charging so little, he thinks they also like Ruan Ino. So he considers uploading it on his own channel too. Meanwhile, the manager from Nike, Kai, watches the PC raid video, commenting that the tables have turned and the premise is fun. And then, he notices it's not over yet. As he continues watching, he sees Millig face off with a dark elf, taking him down with just one skill. It was an epic fight, and he's impressed that a player at that level could easily beat such a grim boss with good control. So he says he's been wasting his time on unsatisfactory candidates, and that player has what it takes to be a star. He thinks he has to get him to sign with Nike, no matter the cost. He looks and realizes the boy is from the Argon channel, thinking he'll need to talk to them first. Back in the Black Forest in the northern zone, he continues slaying trolls and pushing through several of them. Then he thinks he's definitely leveling up faster than before. He remembers the first time he played with Milligod, when he lacked both items and knowledge. But now, it's way easier. Since he's already behind in the game, he has to level up a lot faster. He keeps killing that Zork, reaching level 24. He says that the Meadow Orcs are way too easy for him now. Then Tang speaks to him in a playful way, calling him Dumb Master, saying he thinks he's gotten stronger. That's when he notices Tang has actually leveled up too, already hitting level 15. He mentions that among the pets he's seen, each one has different status growth per level. Uncommon pets gain between 3 and 5 stats, rare ones between 6 and 7, and unique ones between 8 and 10. Judging by the way Tang's stats are going up, he's definitely a unique pet. He thinks Tang's buffs are solid, and in the future, he'll even be able to tank. He keeps asking his to carry on, while the boy thinks that the only thing left to learn are a few skills. After taking a hit and starting to grind those monsters down, he's sure to be careful not to leave anything behind. Tang starts calling him a dumb gold digger until he notices something shining on an orc's arm. He checks it out and realizes it's a necklace. He wonders why an item like that dropped here and says he's never seen it before. Then, he receives a new quest, Heir of the Meadow Wolf Tribe. He's curious about the quest and realizes he has to deliver the necklace to the current chief, Ruanakum, wondering what that means. Questioning if he's supposed to be recognized by a boss monster, he says that the champion of the canyon will be tough to defeat, and that Chief Ruanakum is probably an NPC. It's a quest involving an NPC he's never heard of, wondering if it's something special. He notices it's a rank D quest, so he needs to be at least level 30, and after 4 more levels, he'll be ready to go. Then he decides he needs to rush, calling Tang Tang to go hunting, but the bear asks his master to take a break for a bit. A while later, he says that it's taking too long, and after all that, he only gained 1 level, mentioning there's a limit to what he can do solo. Tang gets annoyed, questioning what he means by solo, since he's working hard to support him from behind. Then, he mentions he would play in a group, which would help him level up faster, but only if he had people he could trust. Just then, the tank tells him to listen. So, he hears a noise and realizes it sounded like a bomb or some magic. At the scene, a mage is fighting an orc, until he finally manages to defeat it with his fireball. He thinks that was the 10th one, and then Mason says his mana is running out too quickly and his potions are almost gone. He wonders if he should call it a day since there's only so much he can hunt solo. Then Ruan-In and his psycho buddy Ted show up behind the boy, asking if he said solo. The boy wonders if it's a monster, quickly activating his mana, and says he hasn't even had a proper rest yet. He fires a magic arrow at Ruanakum, but realizes he screwed up since it's actually a person. Then he notices he didn't hit the boy, just grazed his shoulder. Ruan says that was close, pulling Tang out of the way at the last second, and the mage can't believe it because the guy dodged his spell at that range. Reno tells him to relax, saying it was his fault for showing up out of nowhere, introducing himself to Mason. The boy asks if he needs something, wondering who this guy is, as he's dressed like a clown and carrying a teddy bear. It makes him seem suspicious. Roar thinks his magic power and casting speed are really good, and starts talking to Mason, noticing he's alone. He asks if he'd like to join up for some group hunting. The boy hesitates a bit, but Ruan promises he's strong. Mason thinks he hasn't heard of a player with such a strange appearance, but seeing how he dodged his attack, he concludes this guy isn't just any player. Then he says it's been tough hunting solo, so this could be a good opportunity, and agrees to form a group with him. They strike a deal. Somewhere in the Black Forest, a much larger, darker orc shows up, but a very strong knight slices him in half with a single attack, thinking it's way too boring. Then a girl talks to Chan, saying he should enjoy himself more while they're here, but he responds that boring is boring. The girl says those were orders from the guild master, then asks Joao how the ride's going, questioning if he feels safe. He replies that he does, saying it's his first time hitching a ride like this, and introduces himself as Park JW, a member of the infamous Black Skull Guild. He mentions that his ID was deleted in an accident, but the higher-ups valued his contributions and told him to make a new one. They're taking him back to where he was, and the reason he's ended up here is because of that coward who invaded his territory unjustly, over a bet that cost him his character's deletion, and says he's going to find that guy and make him feel the wrath of his guild, all in the name of peace. Then Jem says it doesn't seem like there are many orcs around, asking if there's another group nearby. The knight says the goal was to get him to level 25, but at this pace, he doesn't think they'll make it. He figures they'd need a group of more than 2 to clear that many orcs, but then they notice an orc spawning, and the boy runs off, thinking he'll take it down himself. Meanwhile, Mason talks to her, thanking him for teaming up since they're leveling up way faster than when they were solo. He says he's even leveled up already. Mason thinks his strategy is to grab the orcs' attention and lure them into an area, then use his long-range magic to hit them, and Ruan finishes them off. He says he just repeated that process, but now he's leveling up much faster. Tang compliments the mage, saying his spells are awesome and that it'll make him a perfect servant. Ruan questions if Tang is sure about that, reminding him that his first greeting was a magic arrow. Tang says he forgot about that, claiming it was just an indiscriminate weapon of terror, but he adds that it was both their fault and admits he's easily startled. Tang doesn't attack people, but another monster pops up. Ruan tells him he'll handle this one, asking Mason to save his mana. As Ruan gets close, he kills the monster before the other boy can finish it off. And that's when he remembers Ruan, getting super pissed, saying he's the jerk from last time. He says he's been looking for him, but Ruan quickly kicks him in the face, knocking out some teeth, and apologizes, saying he thought he was a monster. Then, his senpais show up to save Joao, while Ruan tells Mason it wasn't his fault for scaring him like that. Mason finds this pretty hypocritical. Then Joao starts yelling that Ruan hit him on purpose, telling his friends that's the guy, saying Ruan was the one who deleted his ID. Ruan remembers him but asks what the boy's name was again, and he says it's Joao. Then the boy asks if he knows that person, and Ruan says he's just a dumb friend who lost his character in a bet. Joao then questions who R's friend is, saying that 2 guild executives are with him today and that Ruan is dead. Game tries to calm the boy down, telling Ruan to lower his voice too because there's a limit to his patience. The boy doesn't seem too worried, asking what Game will do when his patience runs out, saying he's not afraid of that Rotten Bones Guild or whatever it's called. That's when he mentions the Black Skull, getting really mad. Game then says those 2 guys seem to be at least level 60, wondering if they're not going to hurt them, but tells him on not to get involved if things turn into a fight. But then Shaw says this is too boring, announcing he's leaving, and Game also decides to go, saying they're busy and tired. Joao asks what they're doing, but seeing they won't respond and are just walking away, he says he'll have no choice but to report them and tell the bosses that Za and gang ran away after hearing someone badmouthing the guild. Joao then asks them to follow his lead, saying he'll apologize later. But the knight, fed up, calls Joao arrogant and sends him flying with a single punch. He says it'll be quicker to hunt if one group disappears, and Ruan asks if they're asking for a duel. He mentions a duel with the stakes being character deletion, asking if that's okay. But Mason says if Ruan loses, his character will be deleted. T then questions what happens to him if Ruan loses, and Ruan says he'll probably be deleted too. At this, the teddy bear laughs and Ruan says the 3 of them can come at him, as the terms are character deletion, and the winner takes all, like a captain's battle. The knight notices Ruan is only level 20 but is very cocky, so he accepts the challenge. Ruan explains the captain's battle. A captain from each side will duel, and the winner continues. Then the next representative from the losing team enters the fight. The side that runs out of representatives first is considered the loser, and so the first duel is Ruan versus Sean. Joao keeps saying he'll shut him up this time, but Sean complains that Joao talks too much, and even Game questions if everything's going to be alright. Tang says if Ruan loses, he'll curse a lot. Ruan reassures him, saying it'll be easy, and the duel begins. Shaw says he'll end it in 1 hit because they have other things to do, and Ruan counters by saying that because of the level difference, it'll take more than 1 hit, but he'll finish Shaw in 10. Shaw says now he understands why Park Juno hates Ruan so much, charging at the boy full force and swinging his massive sword at him, but Ruan deflects and dodges the sword. Shaw is shocked, and Ruan says, "That's one," as he lands a strike on Shaw's neck. Everyone is surprised, and Mason thinks about how Ruan read the trajectory of the sword and counterattacked while dodging. Shaw becomes more desperate, asking why none of his attacks are landing. He outlevels and outgears Ruan, so how can there be such a huge difference? Ruan asks if he's surprised, explaining that everyone thinks they can win just by having a higher level, but they're talking about the arena, where levels and gear don't guarantee victory in PvP. He says that even if someone has a lower level, they still have a way to hurt their opponent. He completes the 3rd strike, explaining that the way to hurt someone is by making multiple wounds. It takes some time, but you can defeat any player, regardless of level, using this method. And Mason is surprised, realizing that Ruan's control is not just exceptional, it's on a whole different level. Ruan wins the first duel, complaining about what the other 2 are doing, calling for the next one. The next battle is completely one-sided, with Game getting intimidated by Ruan's skills and defeated without landing a single hit. Now, only one participant remains, Jungo. The boy says it's a shame since he was just being carried to remake his character, but now he's about to get deleted again. He wonders if there will be other guild members willing to carry him, and he remembers June, Han, and Beck when he sees that guy, thinking they're both arrogant because of the boost they get. He realizes that they even look a bit alike, which makes him want to mess with them even more. He tells Joao to beg for mercy, saying that maybe, just maybe, he'll spare him. Joao can't believe it. Park Ju took a fatal blowback when he was level 40, and now he's only at level 20. There's no way he can walk away from this, and he starts having extreme anxiety, his heart racing, and the arena picks up on his irregular state. At that moment, he's rewarded, activating Berserker mode. He begins getting more and more powerful, and Mason notices as he charges toward Ro. Mason thinks to himself that, from the first time he met him, he knew Ro was the type to get angry easily. Then, Ro tells the boy that it's time for him to go home, because he can't be acting like that here, and he defeats him with just one punch, smashing him into the ground. With ease, Ro wins the duel against all three. He receives the reward according to the rules. The winner takes all. He says he got 3 of their items. They practically handed them over, and this is way better than hunting monsters. Then Mason comes running up to him, and Rin recalls that he told him it was no big deal. Mason says he looked really cool, defeating a higher-level player purely with technique, and says he's become a fan. Ro thinks it would be surprising if he mentioned that he used to be the top-ranked player, but he finds it a little embarrassing. He asks Mason if they should go back to hunting, and the boy says yes. Sometime later, Mason says that thanks to Ro, hunting was super easy, and asks if they can do it again. Mason sends a friend request to Ro, and Ro replies that they will. He thinks he managed to reach level 31 while teaming up with Mason, and there aren't many innocent boys like him in the arena. Mason is also skilled, and Ro has a feeling they'll get along well in the future. Then Ro says he's leveled up enough, and now they should finish that quest. He explains that the mission's goal is to deliver the necklace, and to find Chief Raycon, he first needs to locate the boss that appears in the meadows of the wolf tribe of Kanem. This type of boss spawns randomly in the area. He mentions it has a 12-hour respawn time, and it's been 12 hours since they got there, so it should be nearby. But Dakin hasn't shown up. Tang tells him to take a break because he's too tired to walk. The boy admits he's tired too, and Tang points to a small door, asking if they can rest there since it looks comfortable. Ro wonders if there's really a place like that. When they arrive, they enter the Kanem champion's house, surprised they found it. He realizes that this entrance is where Dangel said Tang would succeed, calling him a lucky charm. But Ro scoffs, saying that's crap because he just wanted to rest. Jay jokes that he's going to hex him if he doesn't stop whining. Ro notices that the boss doesn't appear on the field like other monsters and wonders if it's because of the quest. He says that now that they've found it, he opens the door and steps inside, but once there, he sees a massive figure, towering with an overwhelming presence. He wonders if that's Dakin and asks what business a human has there. Ro feels like there's no way he can beat him at his current level. Already annoyed, Dakin asks the boy again. Ro says he's there to deliver that necklace to Raycon. Dakin asks if that necklace belongs to Cancum, wondering if that fool caused trouble again. He thanks Ro, telling him he can leave now. But before Ro hands over the necklace, he pulls it back, which irritates the orc. Dakin tries to grab the necklace from the boy, asking if Ruan didn't hear what he said, deliver it and leave. Ruan insists on delivering it himself to Ronin. He thinks there's no way the quest will end if he just hands over the necklace now. He'll get as much out of this quest as he can. Dakin says he recognizes R's spirit, but if he wants to meet the chief, he needs to prove his strength. Dakin says he'll test the boy, and Ruan receives a new mission, Dakin's recognition. He needs Dakin's approval to find Raycon, and to get it, he must fight him. Ro is thrilled because he knew there'd be another quest. That necklace is at least a rare item. Dakin starts the trial quickly, grabbing the boy by the head and tossing him into the air. Ro manages to land on his feet after being thrown, but Dakin continues his fierce attacks. However, the boy dodges the next attack, surprising Dakin, and appears beside him, trying to strike. Dakin questions if Ruan dodged his attack and tried to hit him too. But then Dakin manages to dodge R's strike, suspending himself midair, preparing to counter the boy. Ruan gets hit, realizing that level 31 is still way too weak, and that Dakin is too strong to defeat with pure skill. Dakin is definitely the toughest opponent Ruan has faced since returning to the arena. Dakin tells him that's not enough to meet the chief, saying the boy surely has more to show, as his HP, which was at 520, drops to 120. The boy says, of course, admitting he hasn't used his full power yet. He calls Tang back, saying it's an emergency and asking him to prep his buff. Tang asks if Ruan knows how long it's been since he told him to rest and tells Ruan to stop grinding so much. It's making him look like an addict. The boy jokes that if Tang is his pet, he should act like one, mocking him by calling the bear the troublemaker from Buzzing Island. Tang calls Daisy uncle, and Ruan asks if they know each other. Tang confirms, saying they've known each other for a while, and Dakin asks if Ruan is Tang's master. Tang says yes, calling Ruan his stupid master. Ruan can't believe the two know each other, and Tang asks if they were fighting. Dakin denies it, mentioning that Ruan is going through a trial to meet Chief Orc Raycon. Tang seems familiar with Dakin, but Dakin says enough talking. They're in the middle of a trial. He tells Tang that since Ruan is his master, he'll allow them to fight together and asks if Tang will join. Tang responds that he doesn't think it's smart for Dakin to interfere, so he'll just cast his spells from over there. But Reno says that the only thing Tang knows how to do is that. Anyway, if you like this video, please subscribe, leave a like and comment for the next part.